everyone. My name is Rebecca Arends. I'm co-chair of the Chamber's Policy Council. I want to thank and welcome the viewers tuning in to the Tampa Chamber's virtual candidate forum series. The Tampa Bay Chamber focuses on policy, not politics. And while they do not endorse, this forum serves as a means to make sure its members in the business community are informed on where candidates stand on issues that are important to business. Today, we're excited to have two candidates for Florida Senate, District 18. I'd like to welcome Representative Nick DiCeglie and candidate Eunic Ortiz. Thank you both for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
And with that, we'll jump into our first question. Representative DiCeglie, I'll start with you. We are just 6 weeks from Election Day. Can you give us a brief update on how your campaign is going and what message you want to deliver to voters in the final stretch?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks for having me. It's always good to be, with the Chamber of Commerce as a small business owner myself. Certainly live every single day the challenges we face, in our business community. So it's good to be with you all. The campaign's going great. We have knocked on over 22,000 doors. We've raised about $1.3 million. A lot of that from, local folks in Pinellas County have been very active in the county for the last 26 years. Really proud of the work I've done in the legislature these last 4 years. Really been focused on reducing regulation, keeping taxes low, and really making sure that we've created a pro-business environment in our state so that businesses can come here, they can create jobs, they can grow, and allow their employees to realize and live the American dream. Moving forward in this campaign, I'm certainly going to be focused on those, pro-business issues. But certainly we've got an issue with affordability, whether that's, housing affordability, whether that's, gas prices, inflationary pressures, property insurance. We've got some real issues here. I think that we need to take a look at our regulatory framework in many different policy areas. I'm certainly proud of the work we've done in the legislature in 2021 and in special session in 2022 when it comes to property insurance, dealing with, one-way attorney fees, trying to level that playing field. It's a very, very complex issue. I think we need to do more in the coming legislative session because I think that it's been such an imbalance over the last few years. The more we take a bite of that apple, I think the better it's going to be for Floridians. I want to focus on the environment. Very proud of the work that we've done in the legislature the last 4 years and making sure that we've got adequate funding for red tide research, making sure that we've got funding for the resiliency grant program, clean water legislation we did a few years back. These are things that are incredibly important for our coastline communities, especially in Pinellas County. We're on a peninsula. It's the #1 economic driver in our county. And then, of course, we've got infrastructure and transportation. I think that we need to continue improving our roads, expanding our current roads, making sure we've got access to broadband for our rural communities. And so these are the things I've been focused on. Got some obviously great feedback at the doors. Folks are really laser focused on our economy. They're worried about these inflationary pressures. And I think that here in the state of Florida, with us having the requirement to balance our budget, but I think our pro-business approach to our economy has lessened the impact of what we've seen in really failed policies coming out of Washington, D.C. So that's my platform. Obviously, I'm very pro-business, one who runs a family business with 35 employees each and every day. And I looking forward to this conversation today.
Thank you very much. Candidate Ortiz, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Eunic Ortiz, of running for this District 18 seat. And for almost the last 15 years, I've worked across local government, public affairs, policy, and organizing. And I believe we need someone leading my hometown in Tallahassee, my home county, that's going to fight for everyday Floridians. It's not just about fighting for one section of Florida. It's about fighting for all sections of Florida. Right now, we're not in a recession. We are in a space right now where the top corporations are recording record profits, while small businesses are reeling with rising rents, while everyday Floridians are reeling with rising insurance costs. We could be doing so much more to make sure we're alleviating the pressures across those different areas of our county and our community. And Right now, we're seeing the overreach of the state taking away local government control. We're seeing the overreach of the state suppressing wages and not raising wages to the space they need to be in. In 2020, I was proud to be part of a fight to raise wages in the state of Florida. I believe that workers who are well paid make for good business. We have a staffing shortage right now in our public education space, in large part due because we don't pay our teachers enough. We don't pay school staff enough. And all of this is tied to the affordable housing crisis we have. We do not have enough time to build what we need to build to address the affordable housing crisis in this moment. We could be doing so much more. And I'm hopeful that in the next session, when we win in November, we will be a champion and leading the way to do so much more for affordable housing, not just for the next 5 years, but in the immediate. We need to think about the folks who at the end of the month won't have a place to live. And that's what I hope to do as the next state senator.
Thank you. Candidate Ortiz, we'll stick with you for this next question. Please tell us the 3 most pressing issues the legislator will face this coming session and how, if elected, you plan to help address those issues.
Sure. The 3 most pressing issues I would say Florida faces may not always align with what the legislature takes up, and history tells us that. This past session, we should have seen a more pointed focus on the alleviation of the housing crisis, whether it was allowing local governments to develop new upzoning rules or working with towns to create more equitable, affordable housing. Housing for me is number one. And that's not because me as a candidate says that. That's what our community says. That's the number one issue in Pinellas County right now, and frankly, probably across the country. Number 2, I think we need to focus on education. And when we say fully funding education, it's not just making sure teachers no longer have to use GoFundMe to get the supplies they need in a classroom. It's about making sure they're making a wage to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. Right now, their starting salary as a public school educator, you can't afford that. So that would be number 2. And number 3 is our environment. Like the representative said, we're a peninsula on a peninsula, but we need a comprehensive statewide environmental plan that addresses the now and the 20 years from now. We need to be doing more for our shorelines. We need to be doing more to update even micro things like our recycling centers in Pinellas County and across the state. We could be doing so much more for our environment, but we have to start now to start mitigating the process and the effects of climate change.
Thank you. Representative DiCeglie, same question for you.
Yeah, I'll go back to, property insurance is a big issue. Obviously, we've got increasing rates here the last few years. We have made some efforts, like I mentioned earlier, in the legislature 2021 in a special session here this past year. We need to continue to do more. I think we need to do more in tort reform. As a business owner with a fleet of refuse vehicles, my insurance when it comes to commercial liability is also on the rise. And we need to balance, this tort reform. It's too easy to file lawsuits. We need to make sure that the consumer is the focus of those type of public policies. But certainly property insurance and tort reform is a big issue. I think education is a big issue. I'm a full supporter of school choice while also making sure that our public schools are adequately funded. School choice, really is focused on folks who are in neighborhoods that are surrounded by F-rated schools, to give those kids and those parents the option to send their children to a school that best fits their needs. I think is just good, sound public policy. And then, of course, I'm going to piggyback with the environment as well. I don't think recognizing that we've got issues in our state, in our country, when it comes to climate change, rising tides. The question is, how are we going to adjust to that? How are we going to have mitigation attempts without breaking the budget? There's a lot of ideas out there, but a lot of those ideas have a huge cost factor to it. I've been working with USF St. Pete and their Marine Center to really, come up with good, innovative ways with technology to find out what local communities can do, what the local municipalities can do. Because at the end of the day, it's going to take a federal effort, it's going to take state efforts, and it's certainly going to take some buy-in from our local communities to make sure that we're doing things that are efficient, effective, and not cost prohibitive.
Thank you. So we're going to get into some more of the substantive questions here. Do you support the continuation of broad home rule municipal powers to ensure that municipalities are responsive to the unique needs and preferences of their citizens? Representative, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I am a supporter of home rule. At the same time, I have been sponsors of bills that have preempted local government. My impact fee bill is a great example of that. We've had impact fee increases are on the rise, some upwards of 300% across the state. And quite frankly, so these local governments got out of control. There was a broad definition of the word infrastructure. So we clarified, that term. We created a glide scale so that we can keep the increase of impact fees under control. But I do believe that, government closest to the people has the biggest effect on the citizen, on our constituents. There's no question about that. But there are times, one time is too many, but unfortunately, there's been several times where government has simply, overreached their authority. And in those cases, we as the legislature have the authority and the right and the purview to go and make those necessary changes at the local level.
Thank you. Candidate Ortiz.
Absolutely. I believe we need to give a little bit more power back to local governments. I think the amount of power that has been taken away and where local governments can truly lean in has continued to be pulled back by Tallahassee. What works for Temple Terrace is not going to work for Treasure Island, right? That could come across in a number of ways, whether it's a community deciding if they want to raise their minimum wage, whether their community deciding what they want to be built on their streets, community of duly elected officials deciding what different zoning laws may look like, or whether or not you want short-term rentals down your street and on your block. We need to empower localities to make those decisions, as the representative said, because they know best. And I believe that there are a lot of very specific areas where this has continued to be pulled back over the course of the last several years. And hopefully, moving forward, we'll see some of that power return.
Thank you. All right, next question. Florida has always been a complex home insurance market, but recent issues are pushing the state's market to the point of collapse. What can be done to prevent the collapse of the insurance market here in Florida? Candidate Ortiz, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. I was excited to see the legislature this past year pull up a special session. They did not address the home insurance crisis during the regular session. I was excited to see them pull together a special session to address the insurance rise in costs, which is just to say one part of the overlying home housing crisis we have in Florida. I was not excited to see what the solution was. $2 billion back to insurance companies. As you talk to folks, we've talked to thousands of folks across the district. Not a single one I've met hasn't seen their home insurance rise. This is an issue that needs an immediate solution. We have folks who have almost paid off their homes, retired, living on Social Security, seeing hundreds of dollars a year go up in their home insurance is a cost they were not anticipating for, frankly, either the same or lower coverage from their insurance company. You've probably heard of folks that insurance companies have been fleeing the state or have been dropping folks from their policies. Those are the items we have to focus on, but we can't lose sight of the fact that that is one piece of the pie. We have to have a comprehensive housing policy plan for the state of Florida that's going to address everyone who lives in a home, apartment, or condo. It's not just those who are homeowners, those who are small business landlords, or the corporate landlords, those who are tenants, even the small business tenants. All of this affects, and it has a through line through what everyone is having to be paid. And right now, when we see some tenants say, my insurance is going up, in large part, that's due to this increased rise in home insurance. So for me, it comes down to a solution of making sure we're not just spending money and giving a kickback back to the wealthiest, giving a kickback back to these corporations. We need to have a comprehensive idea here that we actually have to help the people. We actually have to make sure they're getting the relief they need. And that didn't happen this past year, but I'm hopeful we can put together a plan that will see it happen after the election.
Representative DiCeglie, same question for you as well.
Sure, thanks. I chaired the Insurance and Banking Subcommittee for the last 2 years in the Florida House, and the fact that we instilled pre-suit notice, we dealt with bad faith lawsuits, attorney fees related to assignment of benefits, fee multipliers. We had some additional regulation of insurance companies, reporting requirements for the insurance companies. The folks that I speak to, they say the biggest issue and one of the most important things that we can do, and it's likely to be a very, very small bill, and that is to eliminate the one-way attorney fees. We're the only state in the country that has one-way attorney fees. And basically that means if there's a claim and the insurance company comes in and says, we're going to offer you $1 less than what the claim was intended to be, or what it's ruled to be, then the insurance company has to pay for both attorney fees for themselves and for the insurer. And so that to me is one of the main reasons why we've got increased litigation, increased cost around litigation. Insurance companies have no incentive to try and settle these claims at a lower rate. They'll go ahead and say, we're done with this, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 more than what it should be settled to. And so I've spoken to the experts multiple times, and we eliminate the one-way attorney fees. I think we're going to continue, moving in the right direction and really, complement what we did in 2021 and 2022. And folks have to remember, I wish it didn't take as long for these reforms to stabilize the market and really have an impact. But that's just the way this is, 12 to 18 months. I think in the next 12 months, we'll start this time next year. We'll just start to see the positive effects of what we did in the special session. That doesn't comfort the homeowner who's getting the 25, 30% rate increase. I fully recognize that. But it's a very complex issue. We did take some strong positions on that, some aggressive action in reform, and we need to tackle this one-way attorney fee. And I think it won't be the end of it, but it certainly will make a difference in the long run.
Thank you. I know we've already talked about housing a little bit, and that's kind of my next question. Housing availability has become a major issue for many Floridians, including in your district. How would you seek to make housing more affordable? And Representative, we'll start with you.
Thank you for that question. It's something that's very concerning to me personally. Like I mentioned, I've got 32 employees, and they come to me, on a weekly basis saying, hey boss man, what are you all going to do in the legislature to, make it cheaper for me to live in my apartment? I don't want to move. And I'll say this, look, I think that, we need to fully fund the Sadowski Fund. I think that moving into the next legislative session, I am fully supportive of increasing the amount to fund the Sadowski Fund. We limited that a couple of years ago and kind of spread out some of those funds towards, some of our environmental issues. I think that, we need to make sure that is fully funded. I also think that we need to work with local governments, see what we can do from a regulatory standpoint. I know, the city of St. Petersburg has done a really great job in thinking somewhat outside the box, being aggressive when it comes to incentivizing developers to build affordable housing. We've got a supply and demand issue here. There's no question about that. I think that not every municipality has policy like the city of St. Petersburg. We've got 24 municipalities in Pinellas County. Not all of them are laser focused on trying to create, some relief for affordable housing, which is basically, making sure we have more units available for folks. That is not going to happen overnight. I think that, again, kind of a free market approach is key here. I do not support rent control. I think that has some serious and significant unintended consequences in the long run. But again, I think that, us doing our part in the legislature and making sure these programs are funded, working with our partners at the local level to make sure that, we're dealing with lower regulations, we're dealing with, zoning, density improvements so that these units can go up quickly. The permitting process in some cities is very quick, 3 months and you're through the permitting process. There are other cases where it's 9 to 12 months. I don't think that's acceptable. when we're trying to deal with a affordable housing crisis. So, those are some of my plans. And again, we're somewhat limited in the legislature, but I'm open to, looking at ways to expediting, this very important issue for our constituents.
Thank you. And candidate Ortiz, same question. How would you seek to make housing more affordable?
I would start with the Sadowski Fund, and every state elected official that voted for the budget this year voted to remove money from that Sadowski Fund. This fund is directly tied to affordable housing and how we can build and sustain affordable housing across every county in the state. St. Petersburg actually used funds from the American Rescue Plan out of Washington, D.C. and the White House to help alleviate the housing crisis here in St. Petersburg. We need more municipalities who are able to do that, but we can do that for the state of Florida if we actually allowed the money that is allocated to the Sadowski Fund to stay there year over year and actually distribute those funds to each individual county and local government to make that decision for themselves. Right now in Clearwater, there's a parcel of land that's going to come up on the ballot in November to give it to the voters to decide what to do with. I wish that an option on the ballot was to create more affordable housing, but it's not. It's to create luxury housing and additional units for small businesses, which I think is fantastic. We need more small business in downtown Clearwater, but we need equitable, affordable housing that our educators can use, that police officers have access to, that firefighters can use, because the rising cost of rent, and not only that, the rising cost to buy a house if you're a first-time family, is almost out of reach for many, especially many in my generation. We need to make this a priority. There are 5-year plans here to build housing, and that's wonderful, but we need that immediate plan. I too was not excited to see how rent control came up in the St. Pete City Council meeting. I think it was a little bit short-sighted, but I think there is a space to take into consideration small business landlords and tenants and how we can work to make sure both parties are taken care of in trying to stabilize the rising costs, whether it's homeowners insurance or whether it's the rising costs in rent. Because when you talk to a small business landlord, and I'm not talking about folks who have 1,000 units throughout this county, I'm talking about the folks who have 1 or 2 townhomes, that's their retirement. And we need to make sure they're not scapegoated in this process. When you talk to them, the only reason they're raising their rent is because the cost to maintain their house, the utilities, the insurance, the cost to fix a roof, all of that is rising. How can we make sure those small businesses are taken care of? And I'll just end on this. Pinellas County is one of the most densely populated counties in the state of Florida, and we know that. But there are ways and creative ways we can reutilize our land that for far too long have either sat dormant or have not been utilized correctly. There is an idea called upzoning that I fully support. How can we, where the communities and neighborhood associations want it, how can we re-identify how to utilize single-family home land to create what looks like should be in this neighborhood, what looks like should be on that block, to be able to provide space, low-cost rental space for those just starting out of college or for those trying to get back on their feet. We have to think creatively here, but we also have to think immediately because we have to help those folks who have their leases coming up just in a few weeks.
Thank you. Public education from K-12 through post-high school is a major focus for the Chamber's Workforce Development Committee. What will you do to increase the funding of community and technical colleges in order to invest in the workforce? Candidate Ortiz, we'll start with you on this one.
Thank you for that. I am a proud graduate of SPC right after it transitioned from SPJC to St. Petersburg College. My mom has been a professor there for the last 25 years. So I know the importance of providing funding for community colleges, for technical colleges. And I think we also need more trade in our high schools. We need to start training folks at a younger level to be prepared when they get out of high school. Not everyone needs to go to a 4-year college. I was honored to sit on the Tampa Bay Workforce Development Committee under Mayor Jane Castor. And that's something we talked about. How can we as a community transition resources through business, transition resources through labor, through local government, to make sure these programs are expanded, because we have a lot of jobs coming up in Pinellas County, but we don't always have the people to fill those positions. And these are well-paying jobs. These are jobs with benefits that folks just need a little bit of training for. But sometimes the number one barrier to getting that training and education is money. Not everyone can take out a student loan to go to these schools. Not everyone is eligible for a scholarship. So how can we make it more incentive for them to go? How can we as government invest in our future, in our state's future, and invest in our next generation of students and provide expanded bright futures and provide expanded scholarships for those who truly need it?
Thank you. Representative DiCeglie, we'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Look, it is a top priority of mine. You know, someone who I check the some college box, being in a family business. You know, in my industry, we need truck drivers, we need welders, we need mechanics, and these positions are extremely hard to fill. You know, we have a great collaboration going on with P-Tech here in High Point. They've done a phenomenal job in expanding their programs. I've had conversations with the folks at St. Pete College, really trying to shine a light on this issue. And yes, we absolutely have to adequately fund this. It's something where if a student in high school wants to learn, plumbing or being an electrician or again, mechanics, welding, I think that is incredibly powerful for them in the future, because at the age of 18 or 19, after they get trained, they can hit the ground running as a member of the workforce, start saving towards retirement. They're going to have full benefits. This is something that I think, we certainly need. And we've, the last few years we have, I think, really exposed the need for this. We funded this, need to continue doing so. And I think that, again, collaborating with these, with various schools here in Pinellas County, I think is going to go a very long way in giving options for students who, don't necessarily want to go to college, don't necessarily want to, get into student debt of in the six figures. And so I fully support those efforts and always will.
Thank you very much. Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask both of you if there's a priority that we haven't discussed or something that you want to reemphasize at all to the listeners. And additionally, if you could provide any information about where voters can go to find out more about your campaign and your position on issues as well. So Representative DiCeglie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, look, I think we've covered a lot of ground here. We talked about, affordability issue with its housing, property insurance. We talked about our environment. I mentioned infrastructure. Those things are the key issues that are facing our state, facing our economy. Obviously, the number one thing we hear from the voters is the economy, is rising prices at the grocery store, at the gas pumps. Things are rising, and they're rising rapidly, and people are having a tough time putting money into savings, and that's a significant problem. And so again, I think with my business background, my record in the legislature, certainly I know what it takes to pass legislation that's going to deal with all of those very important and pressing issues. Folks can learn more about the Nick DiCeglie campaign at nickdiceglie.com. Just make sure you spell the name right. And I look forward to seeing many, many more people on the campaign trail and in the neighborhoods in Senate District 18. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidate Ortiz, same question. Any priority that we haven't discussed? And then also where can voters go to find out more about your campaign?
Absolutely. So thank you so much for this. And thank you for holding this space today. We've covered a lot, as the representative said. We've covered a lot, from housing to the economy and the environment. But there's one item that just sort of sits with me, because we saw this become a priority in the state legislature this year, and that was the access to reproductive health care. We have to talk about that. We have to make sure that women and people who are pregnant have access to the health care they need. Women who have miscarriages, women who have ectopic pregnancies, women who are victims of rape or incest, they need access to the healthcare they need. And I would be remiss as a woman to not at least name that, because for me, this is one of the number one things we're hearing from folks from across District 18. They are nervous and they are scared, whether they are retired and over the age of 70 and remember what it was like to not have access to that care, or they're just coming out of college and don't understand a world without access to that care. We have to make sure everyone has access to the healthcare they need and expand and ensure folks can actually afford it at the same time. So I was excited to join this forum, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting it. Our website, also a unique name, eunicforflorida.com, EUNIC for Florida.com. You can look up our record. And having done this work for almost 15 years, but starting in 2008 at the height of the recession, working in local government in New York City, just down the street from Wall Street, I know what it means to sit at a table with folks from across the aisle and sit at the table with folks from different party backgrounds and actually get things done and figure out solutions to the dire crisis in front of us. I want to do that as the next state senator for District 18, and I know I can and will be ready on day one.
Thank you. On behalf of the Chamber's members and its board of directors, we want to thank you both for joining us today and your willingness to serve in an elected office. This concludes our candidate forum, and thank you again to both of you for being here and taking the time to speak with us.